नमस्कार. आयच्या डिबेटात तुमकां सगळ्याक येवकार. आयज आमचो विशय आसा तो म्हळ्यार कोमुनदादीची जी अमेंडमेंट सरकारान हाडल्या ताजे फाटल्यान सरकाराचो हेतू कितें. एक, कोमुनदादीचे अधिकार हातासप हो, काय दुसरो, कोमुनदादीचे सद्याक जे गोंयभर वेव्हार चल्ल्यात आनी बोवाळ जाला ताका आळाबंद घालप हो. हातूंतल्यान खरेंच जे सरकार उलोवन दाखयता तें साध्य जावपाक शकता काय कितें. तीन मानेस्त आसा म्हजे रोज स्टुडियोक. पयली आसात तृणमूल काँग्रेसीचे नॅशनल स्पोक्सपर्सन राजनबाब डिमेलो. राजनबाब वेलकम. दुसरे म्हाका ऑनलायन जॉयन जातात गिरी कोमुनदादीचे अध्यक्ष आनी काँग्रेसीचे फुडारी तुलियो डिसोजा. तुलियो बाब वेलकम. आनी तिसरे म्हाका स्टुडियोक जॉयन जातात ते भारतीय जनता पक्षाचे फुडारी आनी स्पोक्सपर्सन एडवोकेट यतीश नायक. राजनबाब, हांव सुरवात तुमचे कडच्यान करता. तुमी फाटली 3-4 दीस जाले कंटिन्युअसली ह्या गजालीचो विरोध करत आसात. कित्याक लागून? बिफोर आय गो टू तुलियो बाब, यू टेल अस वाय डू यू think that there are ulterior motives behind this legislation?
Well, to begin with, I would like to start with the amendment moved to the bill by Ganesh Gaonkar. And none of the 40 MLAs spoke about it. Till today, nobody is trying to explain what it is. Now, this amendment says that shareholders could be also given land who are landless. Now, this is opening a big Pandora's box. When you say so, we must understand that shares are transferable. Gaonkar is not transferable. Now, when you say shares are transferable, they become sellable. And there are reports that this is a conspiracy, but none of the MLAs opposed it. There are, I believe, MLAs who are shareholders in a Comunidade, but there is no Gaonkari there. And therefore, by being virtue of shareholders, they can't get land. So this will provide them that avenue, number one. Number two, as I have said, shares will be sold. And as per that Comunidade code of 15 years, you must be all that trade, that you are going to sell the land, shares to everybody and anybody who falls within that criteria of residence certificate, okay? And the Comunidade land bank cannot exist for a minute after that. You have opened the whole gate, number one. Number two, in the main bill that they moved, amendment, there is a clause that if any Comunidade is found to be not functioning as per rules, scams or so forth, that pending such an inquiry, that Comunidade can be suspended and a government officer be appointed. Now my question is to this very government who is bringing such a bill to suspend and terminate, or not forget terminate, suspend till inquiry is complete. You have charged people in the ministry, and for them you say, till proved guilty, he is innocent. And here you are striking him out with one pen of the stroke by saying that there is some inquiry, and that inquiry will not get over till the term is over. So one yardstick for your ministers. Then there are ministers with charge sheet sitting down there. Why here? What a BJP government? But there the application is what? You will, till proved guilty, he is innocent. And here, before anything is proved, you go.
So what do you think is the motive behind it?
The motive is to finish the Comunidade.
Okay.
To try to take control of the whole thing and do what it wants.
Okay. तुलियो बाब, मुझा आवाज ऐकू येता? तुलियो बाब, what as a person who is completely well versed with the functioning of Comunidade, what are your primary reservations about this bill?
See, let us first understand one thing, that the Comunidade Code is a beneficial legislation brought, which will, the anniversary of that is tomorrow, 15/4/1961, Legislative Diploma 2070, is a beneficial legislation that bound certain existing statutes and existing laws into a codified manner for running the bodies in an effective manner within an ambit of a law. Now, when you have a beneficial legislation, the government cannot exercise its arbitrary powers, although existing maybe in the law in terms of the legislative assembly and their legislative powers, you need to go through a procedure which requires a consultative process. And this consultative process is provided under Article 652 of the Code, where you have a convention that is summoned at least once in 5 years on the first Sunday of January. At least once in 5 years, but government through the revenue department can still summon it whenever they probably require a consultative process to be done. And only then you have these type of amendments, if at all required, to be passed. I will also add over here, let the amendments, if at all brought in, if at all, be more of a reform to these age-old institutions of this state. They are not age-old in terms of the Portuguese regime. They predate the Portuguese regime. It's only during the last regime these were codified into an act. So these ancient village-level cooperatives, in Portuguese they are called Comunidades Agrícolas. They are agricultural cooperatives. So Comunidade Land Bank cannot be eyed as tradable land for real estate lobby to work on. This is another part which Rajan probably has lost the entire picture and is dwelling on a very small myopic vision of this Comunidade.
Tulio
Vibrant
Babar,
body.
what do you think is the motive of the government behind bringing this legislation?
This is to disempower the Comunidades. This is to make the Comunidades weak. This is with an eye on the Comunidade as a land bank to bring some land and real estate mafia into this Comunidade.
Yatish Bab, respond to that. We'll go to the finer points later. Everybody is saying that the motive of the government looks like government wants to take over the control of Comunidade to an extent that Tulio Bab says that this is an attempt to disempower the institution of Comunidade.
No, I don't agree with it. This amendment to the Legislative Diploma 2070 is not intended to weaken the Comunidades, is not intended to take away powers of the Comunidades, is not intended to weaken the code of Comunidades and the institution of Comunidades. But rather, this amendment is to ensure better functioning of the Comunidades. You see Article 50. Now 50 is only to say that an outgoing member of the managing committee of the Comunidade shall be eligible for re-election. Nothing beyond. You see Article 70. If you see clause 1, the proviso which is added to provision 70, that is only that during the pendency of inquiry, the government may, if it is found expedient, suspend such committee and appoint an officer of the government to take charge of the affairs of such Comunidade till the completion of the inquiry. So that is if there are some cases which warrant such a action. So basically, it is to ensure better functioning. 334A clause 7 जर पळयत जाल्यार तातूंत लँडलेस जानेरोज ऑलरेडी आसा. Landless janeros land diop is already there. Now in clause 7, that landless janeros is being added with landless janeros of the concerned Comunidade. Now this is for the better functioning of the Comunidade. Then you see explanation 3. Hanga explanation 2 जातकूच explanation 3 add केला, new explanation. And तातून कितें आसा तें applicant falling under clause 7 म्हणजे कोण landless labor of that particular landless janer of that particular Comunidade shall support his application by a certificate issued by the concerned Comunidade duly countersigned attested by administrator of the concerned zone certifying that he is a janero of such Comunidade. म्हणजे कितें ताका बेनिफिट जो तो लँडलेस आसा त्या कोमुनिदादीचो जानेरो ताकाच वच्चे म्हणून सर्टिफिकेट कोण दितलो कोमुनिदादूच. सो बेसिकली कोमुनिदादीचे कसले पावर हांगा वेल्ल्यो ना. देन यू सी 334C इन्सर्ट केला आणि 334B इन्सर्ट केला. आता 334C पळय खंयचे ते. जस्ट सी दिस. Notwithstanding anything contained in this code, the government may with the prior consent of the concerned Comunidad, grant land by way of long lease for any public purpose for such period and on such terms as conditions as may deem fit to any government department, government undertaking or statutory body constituted. दोन गोष्टी, एक म्हणल्यार मे, दुसरे म्हणल्यार विथ द कन्सल्टेशन ऑफ द कोम्युनिदाद, म्हणजे विथ द कन्सेंट. म्हणजे कोम्युनिदादीचो कसलो पावर वरुना, पब्लीक पर्पजा खातीर ती इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर आसत आनी कितें पब्लीक पर्पज. आतां 339 पळय एकूच, आनी दॅट्स इट. 339A पळय इन्सर्ट केला ते. द कोम्युनिदाद मे एंट्रस्ट द वर्क ऑफ डेव्हलपमेंट ऑफ लँड. पळय आं, द कोम्युनिदाद मे entrust the work of development of land to any private agency by public auction or by inviting bids subject to the approval of the government so that it can be grant subdivided plots of land as per provisions of this code. दोन गोष्टी. नंबर वन, कोम्युनिदादीचो पावर उरना, कोम्युनिदाद मे. सेकंड, फक्त गव्हर्नमेंटाचो परमिशन लागता. आणि थर्ड, that it is should be as per the code.
I won't respond much to Yatish because I think Yatish's explanation will not be convincing to the Gaonkars and the Zoneros.
No, he is telling you the act. So
Yeah,
you
I'm
respond to the provisions of the act.
I'm telling you the
Yeah,
law.
yeah.
By telling the law, finally what I am trying to say that the law is going to be used to keep total control on the community.
That's not right.
One minute. Now let me finish. I am not interrupting. I am coming to what Tulio says. Tulio says don't look into the myopic thing. Look at the broader picture of the Comunidad for what they were done. Now I am suspecting now how the Congress is trying to sidetrack this issue. The fact Tulio should first realize that no more the agricultural land, the big parcel is lying with the Comunidad. Under the Tenancy Act, under the Agriculture Land to the Tiller Act, all lands are gone. Number one. If Tulio is again contradicting me by saying that the government should bring this under 652 to the association. If this is myopic, why do you want to discuss it? To waste whose time? The stakeholders are saying they want to discuss it in the interest of Tulio wants to discuss it. At the same time, he says it is myopic. So you're playing the fool. You are discussing something which you are not.
What's your objection? What's your objection to the law? What's your objection to the act?
I already explained the act and the people know it. What he has explained the law, nobody has understood what he has said.
तुलिया बाब, यतीश बाबान सामको पॉइंट बाय पॉइंट वाचून दाखयले. तो म्हणटा हातून वायट कितें आहा? सगळे कोमुनदारांचे बऱ्या खातीरच केलं म्हण आमी.
Yatish Bab, as an advocate and as a votary of his party, having actually, I won't say he didn't read out, but actually rehearsed or given us an explanatory memorandum of what has just been passed in the assembly, doesn't really give us any angle into this law. He has only read out an explanatory memorandum which is there as a part of this approval of the laws, why it has been brought. I am on basically another issue that if you are bringing some reform, first reform the Comunidades why it was meant to be there. You are not doing the things which are of the primary objective and which the government themselves says agriculture is declining. The agriculture needs to be saved. How do you do this first? You are touching the peripheral issues with an eye on giving land for development, with an eye on easing out an inconvenient managing committee which is duly elected, with an eye on doing some management through a government officer in the absence of a committee. These are the issues which have to have a proper debate in the public domain first. And the public domain that exists is Article 652. It is not an association as my friend Trajan thinks. It's not an association. A Comunidad convention is convened in terms of this clause on the first Sunday of January, at least once in 5 years, at least. It can be convened more often if the need so arises, to discuss issues, matters, and reforms, if any, to these bodies. And only after, so these are only advisory norms in terms of a beneficial legislation, rather than sidetracking you, using arbitrary powers and getting the government empowered, and in the process getting the Comunidad bodies disempowered. I am here as a votary of a Comunidad movement an elected president of a sitting Comunidade, and earlier also part of a Comunidade commission that was constituted on the orders of the Honorable High Court, and where actually a comprehensive report has been tabled, placed before the government, submitted to the government, and has been tabled on the floor of the House in response to a assembly question during the last legislative assembly session. And why has the government, when a report which has got some legal, I won't say it's binding, but at least the High Court had ordered the commission to be constituted and to submit its report. When the government, such a report is lying with the government, I want to ask the government, what have you done with this report?
यतीश बाब ऑन दॅट पॉयंट दोन मुद्दे आहेत. एक आसात की जो राजन बाबान काढलो तुलयो बाबाने म्हळें की तुमकां जर कितें अशें हाडपाचेंच आशिल्लें पयलीं कन्सल्ट करा आशिल्लें, डिस्कस करा आशिल्लें आनी मागीर हाडपाचो. दुसरो पॉयंट जेन्ना ऑलरेडी कमिशनाचो रिपोर्ट टेबल केल्लो आसा हावसा भितर त्या रिपोर्टाचेर एक्ट जायनासतना डायरेक्टली एक नवीन लेजिस्लेशन हाडप that raises lot of questions.
I am trying to say that the amendments are good for these purposes. How it helps better functioning of the Comunidades. So there is no point in just saying arbitrary. And if it is something is bad in the law, point out what is bad in the law. You just can't use these words arbitrary. Therefore, my friend in the Congress has to point out, and what he has not done so far is if this amendment is bad, which they say, then say why it is bad, because it is not bad, it is very good. So perhaps they have nothing to say, and therefore they are trying to beat around the bush.
तुलियो बाब तो म्हणटा की
There is nothing to point
why
out.
do you call these amendments arbitrary? तुलियो बाब,
You mean to say that in the existing code there is no provision to act against the illegal or any arbitrary functioning of a managing committee? There are existing provisions in the code which allow the administrator to conduct an inquiry and deal with such a emerging situation of a managing committee defaulting on its duties or carrying out certain matters which are contrary to the interest of that Comunidade, and after a due process of inquiry, because Yatish Bab is an advocate, you can't suspend somebody before he is considered and proven guilty. How do you suspend a committee just because an inquiry is pending on him? After the inquiry, there will be a report. The report has to translate in terms of a charge and a charge sheet, and the charge sheet has to sustain in a court of law. And how does this suddenly sidetrack the entire normal process of a law and say that this committee has to go home?
Uddam clause 1 पळय, that in this investigation all accused shall be given hearing. Hearing कोणे काडिल्ले ना. Hearing कायद्यान आसा, एक्शन घेवपाक. आता क्लॅरिटी हाडपाक, बेटर फंक्शनिंगा खातीर थंय ते एक प्रोविजो हाडला आणि प्रोविजो हॅज गिवन अ पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह टू द फंक्शनॅलिटी ऑफ द लॉ. हियरिंग कोणे काडला? कोण कोमुनिदादी घेवंक सोदता? इट इज फ्रेंझी क्रिएट करची न्हय.
यतीश बाब, don't you think होच न्याय जो आसा तो आमदाराक आणि मंत्र्याक लागपा जाय?
This is, we are talking of the code of Comunidades.
I can
Don't
understand
talk
whether they are
of
both
मार्च सुद्धा भायर वचपाक म्हणटा.
don't go beyond the scope. We are within the discussion of code of Comunidades.
Okay.
1 minute.
Yeah.
No, please.
Yeah. Tulio Bab, welcome to you. Tulio Bab, welcome to you.
Pramod Bab is asking Yatish categorically
Right.
why the same type of scenario should not be applied to your government who's bringing something with unclean hands.
No, that is
with
not
people who have
right.
a charge sheet. 1 minute. And he and Yatish and Tulio are diverting the whole topic. It looks they're both combined, and that happened on the floor of the House.
I'm seriously now getting confused about who is diverting the topic. However,
He's
Tulio
talking
Bab,
something. He's talking something.
Tulio Bab,
It is a straightforward point.
Yeah.
As you have asked, why can
तू म्हणता सगळ्याक सेम न्याय लाय.
Yes.
Okay.
अरे
तुलिया
हांव
बाब,
तेच सांगता की तुका प्रोविजन वाच आणि हियरिंग बिरिंग सगळ्यांनी
पण तू
कॅप्सुलेटेड
सांगता.
Okay.
कोणाची पावर करू ना.
आणि तो आणि सांगता.
Okay now. Tulio Bab,
You
yes.
cannot-
Tulio Bab, respond to it. Yeah.
You look at the existing, there is a tiered form of administration. There is a tiered form of administration that runs the state. There is a village panchayat, there is a Zilla panchayat, there is a legislative assembly, and so on and so forth. Can you suddenly overrun these tiers of
Nobody is overrunning.
administration?
We
and do
are
something?
reading 70.
There
yeah.
is-
Who
now
is
under-
overrunning where
under
panchayat
71
and what you are talking?
Under 71 and 72, the elected president has been specially empowered to do certain things should the
Nothing has been withered
committee as
away.
a whole
Nothing has been withered
override
away in the
decision of the
amendments.
Comunidade.
Nothing
And
has been withered away in the amendments.
no, by suspending, by giving the government a direct power to suspend a committee, it is understood that 71 and 72 are totally becoming
See, if you
irrelevant,
see 70,
redundant,
the
and
power of dissolution
diluted.
is with the
No, no,
administrator.
no.
It is
You
already with the administrator in these kind of cases. And basically, if you see the situation of giving hearing is also in the law. This is only to bring clarity in the law.
no, there is no clarity.
You see
This is only the
70, you
government.
see
And no,
71, it says
and
the accused shall be given hearing.
But both
This
things.
is to
You
bring
cannot-
clarity in the law.
please understand that an elected committee, democratically elected committee, cannot be arbitrarily suspended
No,
by the
therefore I'm
government
saying
pending
you are
an
using
inquiry.
the word arbitrarily in a completely misplaced fashion.
Okay.
No,
Nothing
it
is
not.
arbitrary in
It
the
is not.
law.
Okay,
Please
Rajan Babu, yeah.
understand that I will also touch upon what Rajan was saying just now, that although we are not on a debate on analogous situations existing in the government, but the fact remains that in government you have charge-sheeted ministers who are carrying on the business of the day in a very normal manner till they are proven guilty in the court at some point in time or the other. And here in the Comunidades, it is found expedient to ease out a committee within a few days.
See, my way of
Without
looking
the
at it,
proper
Pramod, would be
force of the
if
law.
these amendments, I'm coming back to it, if these amendments they had to say something, they should have moved amendments on the floor of the House. Why
Okay.
have you not articulated on the floor of the House?
Rajan Babu,
And you are speaking something
No,
else
okay,
outside.
okay.
Please
Rajan Babu,
understand, I am-
final, Rajan Babu, final words. Finally, I can see after almost 30 minutes now that Tulio Babu and Rajan Babu are somehow on the same page. Whether the note is same or not, I do not know. But they are on the same page as far as the ministers and charge-sheeted ministers are concerned. Rajan Babu, on final words, if suppose you have to tell the government that these are the amendments that are detrimental to the institution of Comunidade, withdraw them. Which are these one or two amendments that you would like the government to withdraw?
One
Rajan
is to
Babu. Final.
withdraw.
Final.
One is to withdraw the amendment moved by the MLA Gaonkar, which has been accepted.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why Tulio is silent on that.
Okay.
Which is surprising.
Okay.
Number two, of suspending the government, the committee, without the committee being proved guilty. Same thing should be applied, and Yatish conveniently took allowed Tulio to argue, and he conveniently avoided to answer this. I would like in his concluded this, he should say why the same yardstick should not be applied in this government.
Okay.
So that he come with clean heads, number one. Number
Okay.
two. And about the land being given for, what do you call that, to build, make, what do you call that, to give it to a private person
Yeah.
with the consent of the government, means nothing so bring about in the future, do the fixing.
Okay.
Like Serula Comunidade is one example.
Okay.
I am taking a challenge with the BJP government. Have an inquiry. I am prepared to depose before the land. Not a single Comunidade property is being investigated by the SIT
Okay.
of land grabbing.
Okay. Tulio Babu, if you are to tell this government to withdraw one or two amendments, which amendments would those be?
No, all the amendments have to go. And the correct path of the amendments is to discuss them in the public domain,
Okay.
including having 652 view on this. And only then the government, as a reform, can bring about well-layered norms, including maybe some regulatory norms, if at all are required. Because even 334 of giving extra powers to the government of 10,000 square meters and a special bid to be done and the tender process, these are only to get land of the Comunidades, fixing up a bid, getting a real estate developer. If the committee is not listening, ease out that committee, and then the land is gone to the developer.
Okay.
One second, one
No,
minute,
I'm
one
completely out of
One-
time.
one
I have to
minute.
give time to Yatish to respond. No, Yatish Babu, simple गजाल की दोन गजाली. एक number one, a bill हाडले म्हणून सोंपला. There is still, if the government is sensitive, if stakeholders are saying consult us, take our views and go ahead. Number one, will the government do that? Number two, Tulio Babu has gone to an extent of saying reforms are welcome, control is not. Respond to both your
See, my
final
way of
words.
No,
looking
no,
at it is like
please
this.
understand.
Now, I don't want
government-
to transgress into some other subjects and make it unnecessarily frenzy.
Yeah.
See,
There
understand
is
one
no-
thing. if there is something specific that the opposition wanted to point out vis-a-vis these amendments, they should have pointed out and moved appropriately before the House when these amendments were being discussed. These amendments came
that the House was capable to bring this bill.
These amendments encapsulate the good provisions of the law.
Is redundant.
These amendments encapsulate. Let me answer. I didn't interrupt you.
Tulyabab,
I didn't interrupt
let
you.
Yatish finish. Yeah.
I'm saying these provisions, these amendments
Yeah.
incorporate the good things in law for better functioning of the Comunidad, and therefore I'm saying that the law as such of the code of which is encapsulated in the code is not weakened. Comunidades are not weakened.
Yatish Bab, is the government open to listen to the stakeholders?
Please understand. In the past, convention was not held. In the past,
to suspend a committee because it is found
Prajan Bab, hold on.
That
Yeah.
if at all we had some objections,
Yeah.
the legislators should have moved up on the floor of the House or attempted to defeat
because
the
I'm
bill.
under impression you're speaking for
No, no, no.
Congress.
That
I'm
means
under
the
impression you're speaking for
legislature
Congress.
of the Congress.
debate.
I'm of the
Then
impression unless you want to say that I'm not
The
speaking for Congress.
legislature of the
You mean to say
Congress
your
gave a
debate
clean
has
sheet to
no
the government
Ah.
that it was
I'm
empowered.
completely out of time right now, Tulyabab. Completely
See,
out of
Congress
time.
has to speak in one voice in the House and outside.
I'm
in the House you don't, and outside the House you talk something else.
I'm completely Yatish
Not
Bab.
at all.
That we should speak about the charge sheet
citizen's
minister.
voice.
I am
Citizens'
discussing on the
voice
code
is
of
supreme.
Comunidad.
Yatish,
So point out
please,
specifically
please,
what
no,
you
no,
want to
Yatish
say.
Bab,
Don't talk generally.
Yatish Bab, Tulyabab, I'm completely out. I'm इतलेच सांगता की one, government should be sensitive to listen to the stakeholders.
Absolutely, and the
At the
government has
same
always
time,
been.
Yatish Bab, at the same time, ज्या कोमुनदादी भितर तुम्ही सेरुलाची नाव काढले अशी आनी कितल्योश्योच कोमुनदादी आहात गोंयाक जंय जाची प्रकरणां आमकां दर दिसा रिपोर्ट करची पडटात ती जावची न्ही आनी बंद पडची म्हणून सरकारान कितें तरी करचें इतलेच मागतात राजन बाब आनी थांबता
त्याला खंय?
तुलियाबाब
Where has it
completely
been
out of
done?
time. I'm completely out of
Been
time.
considered by this government to go into the details.
Yatish Bab, completely out of time. Rajan Bab,
reply about
Rajan Bab, I'm completely out of time. How इतल्याचेर थांबता यतीश बाब, राजन बाब, तुला thanks a lot for participating. पळयत रावत Prudent. नमस्कार.